Welcome to Knife Chats. If you like this video, please take a moment to leave a comment. Thank you.
Most of the time when I pick up knives, I pick them up based on a pattern. So I've got quite a few toothpicks. I've got a lot of Scot knives, quite a few Marlin Spike knives, and a bunch of other traditional pattern knives out there. Plus I like to collect the oddball knives that you just run into once in a while. And so I've got quite a few oddball knives out there too. And over the time, what I've noticed is I picked up quite a few knives that do not have any kind of marking on them because I've been picking them up based on pattern. And because of that, I have no idea who made them. I don't even know what country they were made in, but it's a knife that I really like. And so I thought I'd share 5 of my knives that are unmarked that I think are pretty cool for one reason or another. And I got a feeling quite a few other people have knives that are unmarked, because I'm always hearing people ask about that in the forum. Who made this knife? And sometimes that's just the way it goes. You're never going to know exactly who made the knife, where it came from, or anything else. And so at that point, it's just a matter of go ahead and enjoy the knife, because someone should. And if you bought it, you just as well have fun with it. So let me look at these 5 knives that I have that are unmarked in every way. I'm going to start with this jackknife here. Just a single blade jackknife, equal end, cigar shape, I guess. Really big blade on it. This knife is 4.5 inches long, as you can tell here. So 4.5 inches long, so it's fairly large. It's got a nice brass bolster up here, brass pins holding it in place. You see the brass liners, wood handles, and carbon steel back spring and a carbon steel blade. If you notice up here, the blade actually has a swedge on it too, so that's kind of cool too. And also, the blade has a wonderful half stop, and despite being probably at least 50 years old, still has excellent action. There's no wobble at all in this blade. Matter of fact, this thing is one of the tightest blades I've ever seen. I compare it in quality to some of the knives I have made by Queen. So the quality is really top notch. But as you can tell, as you look at that Tang, there's absolutely no mark on it. Cannot tell who made it. And if you flip it over, same thing. There's no mark on the Tang whatsoever. The blade, you can get it razor sharp, because I've had it razor sharp many times already, because I've been using it quite a bit around my workbench and stuff. And it's just a really great knife. The only problem with it is I have no idea who made it. So cost wise, I got it for $2, but easily as good as a $70 or $80 knife that is being made today. But I have no idea who made it. So when it comes to collectible, it's really not much of a collector's item, because no one knows who made it. And that's the only killer on this. But sometimes you just use a knife because it's a really good knife, and this is an excellent knife, despite having no markings on it. Let's move to the next one. Next up is this little fish-shaped gaff hook knife. Now, if you don't know what a gaff hook is, it's a hook that you pass into the gills of a fish so you can actually pick it up and hold it and stuff. Obviously, if you're using a gaff hook on a fish, you're probably going to kill the fish. But if you're catching fish, large fish, you can actually get this into their mouth and then hold them with the hook. And this one's kind of cool because it's fish-shaped. It's got a little nick here. I'm going to repair that eventually. The other blades on it, because it is a fishing knife, you've got your scaler and little fish hook remover and bottle opener, and then a main clip blade. And as you can tell, once again, there's no markings on this. It's a stainless steel knife. I got a feeling it came out sometime in the 60s or so. One of the cool things about it here is you notice it's got this bird's eye rivet, and it's kind of cool because you've got 2 colors going on. So you've got the brass rivet around the stainless steel pin going through the middle there. Otherwise, it's brass pins here and brass pin back here on the little fishy tail. 3 layers, again, all stainless steel. but it's actually well made. And the overall length of it is right at 4¼ inches, and the hook, we'll just measure that. It's got a big hook on it. Comes out about 3 inches, so that's good enough to get into the mouth of a relatively big fish and pull it on board. A lot of people use a gaff hook when they're grabbing a fish with a lot of teeth in the mouth or something, and they don't want to get bit, and so you get it up in there and grab it through the gill and then pull it on board. It's like I said, it's great if you're going to be keeping the fish and eating it, but to use a gaff hook for any other reason is actually cruel to the fish, because you're probably going to hurt the fish. But really a cool looking knife, and once again, because I collect gaff hook knives, this is great for my collection. But because it lacks any kind of markings, I really have no idea who made it. I have a feeling this is a knife that was probably made in Japan or possibly Germany, and it's a little bit of a novelty knife, but a pretty cool knife, probably made in the 60s or 70s. But again, I'm just kind of guessing on that. But if you collect gaff hook knives, why wouldn't you have something like this in the collection? So that's why it's there. Let's move to the next one. And this is one of my favorite gentleman's knives. If you notice those scales, there's little lines running through all that white. These are not white bone scales, but they're made of something else. It's often called French ivory. At least it was called French ivory a long time ago, back in the, I think even before World War II and into the 50s. And the material is probably white linen micarta. And you notice the lines and everything. That's how you know that it's a synthetic material being used. But unlike the pearl handles and stuff like this, this just shows a certain level of elegance to it. If you notice also here, you can see that it's got stainless steel back springs and then brass liners and spacers. There's two tools on the top, two tools on the back side, and then 2 blades up top. And you notice the bolster here at the back, the bail at the back. And notice it's got a nice little ring there, and it's got a little bit of detail going on. And it's a nickel silver bail held in place with a stainless steel pin, it looks like. These pins are very flush with the French ivory also. Now the back tools, one of them is a pick, which means that this could have been used by like fly fishermen, but also just as popular with a pipe smoker, because this pick would be used for cleaning out the stem of a pipe, or also for cleaning out the painted over eyes and jigs and stuff like that. So very popular knife with the gentlemen's, and that's who it was made for. It's a gentleman's pocket knife. And the other tool on the back side is your corkscrew, very common back in the day. And while it looks small, it's extremely tight and well made, and the steel is quite good. I've actually opened a bottle of wine with it, so I know it will work. But the blade that I really like on the back is that pin or pick, which can be used for cleaning out jigs. Now the other tools on the front side, you got a pair of scissors. Again, something that a fly fisherman would really be happy with. And the scissors work great. They cut paper really well. And the other blade is your typical Spearmaster blade. And blades right at 2¼ inches long. The overall length of the knife closed with the bail out of the way is 3 inches. But appears to be stainless steel, but a good quality stainless steel. And as you can tell, once again, no markings on the Tang, so I have no idea who made it. From what I understand, this French ivory material was very popular in both Italy and in Great Britain, so there's a good chance that the knife might have been made in either Italy or Great Britain, even though the material is referred to as French ivory. And if you hear, not a bad snap on that blade, and as you can also tell here, absolutely no wobble. So really solid, well-made knife. I think I paid 15 bucks for it. I think if it would have had a Tang stamp on it, depending on the company, this thing could have easily been in the $50 or $60 range right now. It's definitely as good as any case pocket knife in my collection. but unfortunately no Tang stamp, so who knows what it's really worth. Moving on to my next knife. Okay, this one is a really big knife, and comes in at 4.5 inches closed, and it's got a big honking sheepfoot blade on it, as you can tell. That comes in at 3 3/4 of an inch, and it has another blade on it, which is a saw blade, and as you can tell, it's really tight. And the saw blade comes in also slightly over 3 3/4 of an inch, and it's basically a type of rope knife or Marlin Spike knife. It has two other tools on the back side here. Again, there's no markings on this blade at all, so I have no idea where it was made or who had made it or anything like that. You have here actually a screwdriver, very long, slender screwdriver that's 3 1/4 inches long, and then the other blade on the back side is the Marlin Spike, and it's a flat Marlin Spike that's also 3 1/4 inches long. The handle is some kind of Bakelite or something, but as you can tell, most of the tools are very tight. Everything has a half stop, and it's just solid as a rock. Stainless steel seems to be used throughout. It's nicely pinned on. The pins are exposed. You can definitely feel them. And these knives tend to show up on eBay from time to time, and people spend like $35, $40 on them, and they're unmarked. I was nowhere near prepared to pay that kind of money for it. I just kept waiting around on eBay until I could get one for a low price. I think I paid about $15 for it, but the people are spending $35, $40 for it. They're not getting ripped off. This is a really solid, well-made knife. I wish I knew who made them, because they're just a terrific knife. I don't know where they come from or anything else, but if you're into boating, I can see why you would want this knife because of how well it is made. Again, it is stainless steel, which is good considering it's used around salt water and everything, so I don't know what kind of steel is used in it, but it does get a decent enough edge on it, so it'd be a good rope knife. And you've got that long screwdriver and the Marlin Spike on the back side. There's the screwdriver again, and the Marlin Spike. And then you have this serrated blade, which can be opened left or right-handed because it's just got a hole in the blade. It will cut through wood, but it also saw through rope, which is kind of good. And again, it's like a sheepfoot blade, so not really pointy, but definitely something you don't see on many Marlin Spike knives. And it's a big honking pocket full, which is good because it has a bail so you can tie it around something and hang it or something like that. Again, a really great knife, but who knows who makes it. So that's the real drawback to these kind of knives. And let's take a look at my last one that I'm going to be showing. Okay, that brings us to this last one. And this is a 5-inch kind of toothpick knife. It's also known as a ring lock. The ring here is actually a release element for once the blade is locked in place. And it's almost 5 inches long. Actually, it is 5 inches long closed, as you can see here. And got about a 4-inch blade on it. Nice little saber grind going on that clip point blade. So it's a really nice looking knife. The handle is just a white smooth bone. I have a feeling it's camel bone. I'm not sure. As you can tell, once again, there's absolutely no markings on the Tang, so I have no idea who made it. I bought this at a street fair, and the guy said he made it himself, and I told him, well, if you're going to be making knives, you should probably put some kind of mark on the Tang so that people know who made it. And he said, good idea, and he'll do that in the future. What I have here is the handle. The bone handle is held on by a series of brass pins. and it's very smooth, really nice. You also see in the back here brass liners and a stainless steel back spring. You've got a good strong ring lock. You push down on that ring and it breaks it, and then you can close it. So that's the way the ring lock works. And it's a nice tight knife. Good clip on there if you heard a good snap if you heard it. And it locks open, and the lock is very solid. Does not want to close, and as you can tell, there's absolutely no wobble in the blade. So it's a quality, well-made knife. I'm not sure what the steel is used in here. I'm guessing it might be like a 440. I don't know. It seems to act like 440. Could be better than that. It does seem to hold a pretty good edge. I haven't used it a whole lot. I mainly bought it because I collect white smooth bone knives, and this one just was calling out to me. Let me close it up again. And it's just got that interesting ring lock on it. Kind of falls into my 5-inch toothpick family, but a little bit different than your normal ones. And again, it was just a quality, well-made knife. Unfortunately, there's no Tang stamp marks on it, so there's no way of proving where it was made or who made it or anything. Could have been made in Pakistan, could have been made in the United States. I'm leaning more towards some kind of offshore production, very possibly maybe even in Pakistan, but if it was well made there, and the quality of the workmanship is outstanding, and that bone is so well polished, it's unbelievable, and the brass pins are as smooth as can be. It just looks great, and that's why I bought it. And sometimes that's what you end up doing when you're collecting by pattern. You're not too concerned about the Tang stamp, you're just concerned about how well the knife looks. Yeah, if it had a Tang stamp, it would be worth more, but still, I'm not arguing. I mean, after all, I only paid $15, $20 for it, and it's worth every penny of that. Let's take a look at a couple more knives that do have Tang stamps, but not enough information to be really worthwhile. So next up is this knife, which is a Scot Knife, or it's a fishing knife. Take your choice. It's also got these stainless steel handles on both sides. I really like these kind of knives. And as you notice in the slab side here, you have the various fish hooks drawn in there, going from number 8 through number 16. And these would be typical hooks that would have been used by a fly fisherman. And on the back side, you have the ruler. Also something common back in the day, back in the 1950s and 60s, to have them draw on the knives. So you've got a ruler here for 2.5 inches, and a really nice corkscrew on the back side here. And it is a well-made corkscrew. Yeah, it goes past, it's supposed to. And if you notice, it's got a nice tight twist to it, and very solid. And very tight too. You got a nice bail there with some little marking on there, so it looks pretty cool. And then also a nice tight bail. And also, if you notice here at the very tip, you've got a flathead screwdriver built into the center of the frame. So that's kind of cool too. And then blade wise, well, you've got your main blade, and in this case it says stainless steel foreign, which seems kind of odd. But after around 1952 or so, if the knife was not made in the United States, it had to be stamped that it was not made in the United States. Knives made in the United States were stamped USA or something of that nature. It wasn't good enough to stamp it that it was made in New York. It had to actually say that it was made in the United States. And so got the main spear blade, typical of a Scout knife, and got a good snap to it. And if you notice, once again, really solid, no real wobble to the blade. Yeah, a little bit like that, which is typical. Got the old style can opener, so I'm guessing this knife was probably in the 50s. In 1957 the patent ran out and other people started using it, so probably with this knife coming from overseas, if it's not from the 1950s, it's from the early 1960s. And the other blade you have on here gives you a clue on where it was actually made. You've got this fish hook remover and a cross-cut file, and just barely marked there, if we can get it to focus, you see it says Japan, and in very small letters, so they were kind of almost hiding it. I have a feeling these knives were sold through mail order from like Field and Stream magazine and things of that nature. Might have been brought in through a distributor like Gutman or something, but really a solid, well-made knife. And the other blade we have here, let's see, is it there? I believe it's there. That's this. There they are. Really nice pair of scissors. So once again, something that the fly fishermen would use, or any other fisherman would use. So for a fishing knife, it's a really good quality knife. You've got your screwdriver for loosening up things on your reel, and you got your main blade, you've got your hook remover, and you've got the scissors, and also you've got your you got your corkscrew there for opening up a bottle of wine, and as always, your can opener for opening up your beans or whatever you need. So, and once again, solid, well-made knife, but unfortunately, we don't know who made it or who was distributing it. But at least in this case, we know that it was made in Japan. And if you collect fishing knives or scout knives, you can see why someone would want to buy this, but the value of it just doesn't go as high simply because we don't know exactly who made it. But I can tell you, the examples I've run across are all solid, well-made knives. So whoever was distributing it knew what they were selling. And I have a feeling they would have been in the same boat as like the colonial and imperial knives back in the 50s and 60s, but definitely not up there with like Case. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up with the world famous Inox Rost Frei, or Inox Rost Frei, Germany. It's not a company. This is one of the things that novice knife collectors often ask about. What does Inox Rost Frei mean? It's basically stainless steel in French and in German. So we know this knife was made in Germany and that it has stainless steel blades. Victorinox, the Swiss Army knives, the Inox at the end of Victorinox stands for stainless steel. I mean, before that it was Victoria. So, and then they changed it to Victorinox. Rost Frei is just like it says, rust free in German, or stainless steel. So if you're seeing a knife that says that, that's all it really means, is that it has a stainless steel blade in it. Other things you'll run into are Solingen, which is a place in Germany that they make knives. It's not a brand name. Sheffield is not a brand name really either. Sheffield is the steel region in Germany. I'm sorry, steel region in Great Britain. It's kind of like where the knife is made, but it's not telling you who made it. And those are things you need to remember when you're collecting knives, especially when you're just starting off. Is this a good knife? Actually, it's not a bad knife, but it's really a knife for the junk drawer, because they're as common as dirt, and there's nothing special about them. They're just a Swiss Army knockoff knife. They're made all right. You know, they're worth $1 or $2, but they're not a collector's item. So if somebody is trying to sell you a Rost Frei knife and they're trying to pass it off as something special, just remember it's not. And that's something you just need to remember with any kind of knife such as this. It would have been more worthwhile if it had some kind of marking on it, but the only reason I have it is because I like Gaff knives and I bought it. Is it as valuable as one that actually has a Tang stamp? that gives the company? No, but it's still pretty cool. And the same thing with this. If I wasn't a person who collected scout knives or fishing knives, it would not be something in my collection. But because I collect those knives, then I can kind of see the intrinsic value on a good quality knife, even if I know it's just made in Japan, but I don't know who actually made it. And it gives me something to research. I can always go and try and find an old magazine ad to see if it was who was actually distributing the knives. And someday I might actually be able to find that out. Other knives like this, it's a very common knife. Trying to figure out who made it is pretty hard to choose, but I know because of the half stop that it is a quality built knife, and then you see the swedge on the top, so I know that there was a little bit of craftsmanship put into it, and then just the overall build. So it's a good knife, but it's definitely not a collector's knife. It's something that is good for using. And so that's really what you need to look at. So if you're looking at picking up a knife that is unmarked, consider why you're doing it. Are you doing it because it's a solid, well-made knife and you want to use it? Or is it something that fits into a pattern or a collection that you like? And so therefore, you want to own a copy of it because it has some kind of intrinsic value as a type of scout knife or fishing knife, or in this case, it's a knife that just fits well in my white smooth bone knife collection. So if you're going to grab unmarked knives, think of a reason why you should have it if you're looking at it as something to build your collection. Because the value of it is really going to be the value that you put on the knife, and your value may not translate into an actual purchase price in the future. So those unmarked knives, you may have a value for them, but other collectors, they're probably not going to see the value that you see. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at an unmarked knife, because Tang stamps matter in the world of knife collecting.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Knife Chats, and if you did, please like and share it with your friends. Comments are always welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode of Knife Chats is up online. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.